All right. We're a couple of minutes early, only because the water is just coming to a rolling boil right now. I was kind of hoping it would have done that a few minutes earlier, but nonetheless, that means we get to start making macaroni. 1 pound and 2 pounds coming up because a little story here in that I only have two house guests this week, and I had intended to make 1 pound of mac and cheese so that we wouldn't go overboard with it. However, I kind of made the mistake of mentioning to my girlfriend, sort of girlfriend, that I'm going to be making mac and cheese. Well, she got all excited and she essentially demanded that I make some for her. So it turns out we're going to be making a double-sized batch of mac and cheese, which is pretty much what happens every time I make this. So that's all right. Nonetheless, I can say again to my house guests, I'm not expecting you to eat all of this. Okay, so start off here, and here's where we get to play boil over pasta roulette. Sometime within the next couple of minutes or so, it'll probably start boiling over, but hopefully we can manage without that. Okay. And the official, and there we go. We have just passed the official time. So, hi there. Welcome, everybody, once again to Cast Iron Wednesday, which is a regular tradition that a number of the smaller YouTube cooking channels have been doing for the past several years, or even the past decade or more, in that we have been doing a cast iron video every Wednesday, largely because, well, it's a lot of fun. It gives us an excuse to play with our cast iron, as well as produce some content for YouTube, which, of course, there's never enough cast iron content on YouTube. So I've been doing this now for a little bit more than 5 years. Somehow, I can't believe it. I've been almost every Wednesday with maybe a couple of gaps. I've been doing my best to do a cast iron video every Wednesday, and well, folks do seem to have liked it, because even after the last little gap of what was it, like about a month, 2 months or so, people are still kind enough to show up here on Wednesday to do this live video. So I can only thank everybody who has been kind enough to show up here this evening. So yes, I would like to say hello to Rick Stumbo and Rockets Caver, and hello to Kevin Brown and Calamity Jane and William Hurt. So thank you very much to the folks here who have been kind enough, and hello to Dean Reedy as well. And it does show we've got about 24 viewers so far, which is not a bad start. Hopefully, but with any luck, things will kick in a little bit more when the cast iron comes in. And hello to Fatty Meats as well. Yes, the names here are familiar, so thank you for being here each week. As you see, I've just put the macaroni in the water, and well, of course, that means we've got to make sure it comes to al dente. And I just realized one thing, and that I forgot to take out the colander. So you'll have to excuse me for just a second, so that I'll be ready when this does come out of the water. Clang. All right. Okay, we have a moment or so. I do have to say again that I'm using a stand mic once again, because after last week, it seems that there was some difficulty with the wireless mic. I seem to have gone through about, at least 3, I think, of those wireless mics, and never seem to have had much luck with them. But nonetheless, William Hurd, has this started yet? All still here. Am I getting sound, by the way? As far as I can tell, we should be seeing sound here. Did you get a new electric oven? No, actually, I am still running on gas, and there goes the boil over. Told you. I missed it. All right. Yes, sound. Okay, just wanted to be sure of that because, there have been times where it seems that the sound has cut out. But no, this is definitely the same gas stove. Nonetheless, right now, just, okay, now that we've done the initial boil over, which seems to be a standard part of preparing pasta, it's time to stir a little bit and get ready for this to come to al dente, which should only take a few minutes or so because I've mentioned before that this aluminum Magnolite Dutch oven here is about the best water boiler I've ever owned. So I have no doubt whatsoever that this is not going to take very long. At which point we can get down to playing with some cast iron and making, as promised, the ultimate mac and cheese. And I'm not boasting when I say that, largely because that is actually the title of the recipe that I've been using for the past, well, maybe the past decade or so at least. This is, of course, Jeff Rogers' ultimate mac and cheese that we're going to be making tonight. Because, well, after all, Thanksgiving is a week away, and I was hoping that we could spend a little time this evening discussing Thanksgiving dishes because, well, naturally, cast iron has a lot to do with these dishes, and what's more, cast iron will make a lot of these dishes better, one of which is indeed mac and cheese. How can you imagine having Thanksgiving without mac and cheese? And that's why I'm more than happy to go for Jeff Rogers' mac and cheese. In fact, his mac and cheese is so good that I haven't really bothered putting together any kind of a standard recipe of my own for mac and cheese, simply because his is so good. Although it is admittedly a little costly because, among other things, I've had to get 3 pounds of cheese, well, actually closer to 4 pounds, to go in with this 2 pounds of pasta that we're making here. So there's certainly not going to be any shortage of cheese. All right. And let me see here. Dean Reedy, I could have bought a 12-piece set of Magnolite for $50 years ago. I snoozed and went back. Next day, all gone. Oh, sorry to hear that. I do know that, well, unfortunately, that does happen to all of us. We do. There's this score that we end up kicking ourselves over if we don't actually grab it right away. We all have our tales like that, but fortunately, I'm sure you've been able to make it up with other scores. Hello, Jerry 1952 as well. Second ad already? Really, Rocket Caver? Oh, I'm surprised. I mean, okay, did something else go on? I hope not, because my understanding is that the settings should be the same and that you should only see this about every 30 minutes or so. I'm going to have to check these settings. Maybe YouTube might have changed the advertising settings without telling me about it. One thing that did actually show up last week and this week as well, YouTube has now given me the option to put constant ads on the live chats here. So that that there will be constant ads showing there, and at which point I could make up to 20% more revenue. I said no. So I can only hope that you don't end up seeing ads right here in the on the chat screen as well. But yes, I will have to check that. And I'm sorry for the trouble, Rocket Caver. Howdy, Ironheads. Hello, Cynthia Wesley. Yes, nice of you to drop by. Always glad to see you here. We are going to be dealing with some cast iron tonight. I can reassure you of that. It's only that the first step here is boiling some pasta. Of course, once the mac and cheese goes into the oven, then at least we'll have time to settle back and have a nice discussion, which is really what I'm hoping to do here. Hello, yes, C-Dubs. And let me see if any other names have shown up here yet. What you're cooking? Well, so far we're starting out with elbow macaroni, which in turn we're going to turn into Jeff Rogers' ultimate mac and cheese. Yeah, so this means I'm making this tonight, and of course I'm going to be making it next week as well for Thanksgiving. But again, I did want to showcase at least one Thanksgiving dish here, because again, that is really the subject, in that that I am encouraging folks in the chat here to start talking about, well, Thanksgiving dishes. what you do for Thanksgiving, whether or not it's in cast iron. You can comment. You can ask questions as always. You can answer questions as always. You can even say things about, my apologies. You can even say things about Thanksgiving dishes that everybody loves except you. I mean, we're talking about the ones that only seem to be made and served on Thanksgiving. Stuff like green bean casserole or sweet potato casserole, or of course our favorite, cranberry sauce. Watergate salad, anyone? I don't even know what Watergate salad is, but it sounds interesting. I mean, if it has something to do with a certain incident in the 1970s, then I'm interested in looking up the history of it. Mac and cheese night. Hello, hippie Longshanks. Yes, you're exactly right. Okay, it looks like this macaroni is expanding really to the point of almost, hopefully not absorbing all of the water here. So I better move the microphone over, in fact. So I definitely had better keep stirring this to ensure that everything is properly cooked. Again, the whole point here is al dente. And I realize, again, I've said many, many times that I spent most of my life not knowing how to cook. And since I've, at least learned how to cook, so I can actually consider myself to be a decent cook after 15 years of practice now, I have to remember that there are folks who really aren't even familiar with terms like al dente or how to properly cook a pot of pasta. That included me up until only about 15 years or so ago, because, I mean, even something as simple as cooking pasta, there are tricks that you do need to know about it. I mean, for most folks, for instance, if they're just making boxed mac and cheese, all they know is simply you heat the water to boiling, dump in the pasta, stir it around, and it's done. And I do remember making mac and cheese when I was a young'un, like around high school age or so. My mother always told me of this time when I accidentally burned the spaghetti while it was still in the water. So what happened that time was I forgot this crucial ingredient called stirring, and that meant it actually really stuck to the sides and the bottom of the pot, so that even though it was still in the water, it burned. I don't have a very clear memory of that little incident, but most likely I probably either didn't add enough water or the water boiled down to the point where it was able to stick and burn. But things like that are why, even when making something like mac and cheese, it's nice to know that, well, you can do that. I mean, you actually do have a skill that comes in very useful, because you're never going to get tired of making pasta. Speaking of which, I use 2 different sizes of elbow macaroni in this, and I hope that doesn't cause a problem either. But I better start testing nonetheless to see how close we are to al dente. Ooh, hot, hot, hot. Yeah, actually, we're getting pretty close. There's a chew to it, but I'd say maybe within another couple of minutes, we'll be at the right point. So things are not doing too badly here. I'm full as a dog. Oh, it sounds like you ate well tonight then. I would just as soon have a big jambalaya for Thanksgiving. Yeah, of course. It all really depends on your family's taste, because in fact, here's the thing that shocked me. My family, the folks from Jamaica, have stated outright they do not want turkey this year. They're going to be making oxtail and fish with Thanksgiving. And of course, there really is nothing wrong with that. There's no law that requires you to make turkey. So yes, if you want to make jambalaya on Thanksgiving, you certainly could. And for that matter, you could even make jambalaya as a side dish if you wanted. I mean, after all, it's all about the sides. Not just tonight, but really Thanksgiving as well, the Thanksgiving feast. Because while the turkey is the centerpiece, and hopefully you can make a turkey that can be remembered, naturally, all the sides really are what makes can make Thanksgiving very special. I mean, everybody has their Aunt Gertrude who makes this god-awful casserole that she loves bringing every year. And oh boy, you brought your famous tuna casserole. Yay, let's all have some. So I'm hoping to do my best to ensure that the dishes that I make on Thanksgiving will not develop a reputation like that. Although the fact that my girlfriend demanded that I bring her some mac and cheese after tonight, well, I'm hoping that's a step in the right direction. We have a new tradition for the 4th of July. It be so hot here that we don't dare barbecue. Okay, so what do you do on the 4th of July? Do you go out? Not that that's a bad thing. Dutch oven whole turkey breast here, herb rubbed. Yes. Yeah, I do know folks who do just make a turkey breast. Although, actually, I should correct myself. My family, they don't want turkey, but they do want turkey wings. They love wings and will never pass up an opportunity for wings. So they do want turkey wings. Fortunately, these days in the store, it's possible to get turkey wings, so I will be able to provide them with that. So that's something at least. And now that I've been talking for at least a couple more minutes, let us test this pasta once again. Burn my hand once again. Still not quite, but we're getting close. I think it's because I'm using 2 sizes of macaroni, unfortunately. I made a mistake. I should have gotten one of those single big boxes, but I didn't. So I ended up getting regular elbow macaroni and something called casserole macaroni, which is much bigger elbow macaroni. Nonetheless, it shouldn't take much longer. What's up with the elbow injury? I guess you must have caught this. Okay, yeah, this is actually entirely on the surface. When I made, last Saturday, I made my annual giant garbage cookie, when I took up all of the Halloween candy and baked it into a huge 15-inch cookie, using one of my favorite kitchen tools, and that of course would be Stumpy, my huge number 14 BS&R skillet. Well, I baked that cookie. It turned out great. I put it on my countertop to cool off, and I accidentally tripped slightly and just barely bumped my arm against Stumpy's handle. On his 325-degree handle, just really maybe no more than a couple of minutes or so after he had come out of the oven. And so as a result, I got myself a little war wound here. This is entirely on the surface, though. It's not like a 3rd-degree burn or anything like that. So all I can do is let it heal. And I've had burns like this. I'm sure other folks have had burns like this. It can take up to a couple of months or so for this thing to completely disappear, but the red scar should be gone within a week or so. All right. This year, family tired of normal turkey, so half-breast, wings, and legs smoked, other half-breast baked. Well, then might I also recommend, a couple of years ago, I took the turkey and I cut the turkey into pieces before roasting it in the oven. And I have a video about that. So that's one thing you might want to consider. It might even be cheaper that way to do that with your turkey. And it turned out great. Roasting the individual pieces meant that the entire turkey was cooked in only a little less than 2 hours. So yeah, that is a method I would definitely recommend that you give it a try. I mean, it does not give you a gigantic turkey to use as a centerpiece, but you still have a huge platter of turkey pieces that you can serve to your guests. So yes, I definitely gave this a big thumbs up and would indeed recommend giving it a try. All right, I suspect we are just about done at this point. So last sample, I hope. There, see, like I said, different sizes of macaroni. Try not to burn my hand this time. I think we are good. Which means now we get to drain it And then after that, we get to start playing with some cast iron. So, oops, let me do this right here. Sorry, all the cords because I'm using a stand mic. Okay, now that means we can move over to the sink. Here we are. And again, I don't want to trip over this cord. There was at least one time when I tripped over the cord, took out the video camera, and essentially ended the live video. So I must be careful. And away we go. It does look like it absorbed most of the water. Note to self, as much as I love this, I've really got to use a bigger aluminum pot when I'm cooking 2 pounds of pasta. Some of it's stuck, although I'm pretty sure it did not burn. Here we go. 2 pounds of pasta here. And while we're waiting here, put this aside. And we can focus our attention instead on the counter. So I can move the stand mic again and put it in a more convenient place. Potatoes and vinegar. Sounds like Maine. Ooh, that sounds good. My family always put lots of vinegar in the mashed potatoes. Oh, you know, I've actually never considered that. I'm really going to have to give that one a try soon enough. Well, no, that's not true. I've made potato salad, but I don't think I've made mashed potatoes in that manner. However, that just means I'm going to have to do that soon enough. Okay. I think you ran out of water in that pot. Yes, exactly, Corey Clark. As I said, I'm really thinking at least I can consider this to be practice next week. NB Anton, yes, buttermilk and sour cream and garlic cheese. Ooh. Yeah, I'm considering. Oh, okay. I'm considering this to be practice for Thanksgiving next week anyway, so I'll just bring out a bigger aluminum pot for cooking the pasta next week. However, the time has come now to actually play with some cast iron. So here we go. It's been a few months since we've been able to bring this one out. In fact, I think I'd better even raise the camera a little bit. And folks, you can say hello once again to the Lodge USA enameled 7-quart Dutch oven, which is still in excellent condition, I hope, because now we get to use it to prepare the mac and cheese. Okay. Any cool recent finds? I found a slant logo Griswold number 9. Really? For $25? Well, it sounds like you made yourself a score. I hope it's not in too bad condition either. I passed up a cast iron hollow bunny chocolate mold last night. Really? I'm wondering if you're talking about the baking mold. There is a rabbit one. Okay. However, have to keep on going here. That means we have to follow the recipe here. Okay, add the oval macaroni. We've done that part. Drain. Okay. Oh, yes, that's right. Here is the part where we, as Jeff notes, we have to start painting this Dutch oven here, essentially greasing the sides with butter. Sounds good to me. Everything's better with butter, which means we just simply take a stick of butter and use it like a crayon. Then I'll have to wash my hands, but that's all right. All I'll have on it is butter. And this should not take too long either. The mold had 6 bunnies, really. and had a long spindle for turning. Oh, that sounds interesting. I understand you turned it down, but do you think there might be a possibility of providing a photo? Was this a website, or was this at an antique mall? Because this is something I think folks would want to see a picture of. That actually sounds quite interesting. All right, better do this quickly because this butter is softening very quickly. Fortunately, after I'm done with this, I can just simply throw the butter into the pot because that's what we're going to be doing with the macaroni. Okay, let me see what he says here. Yeah. Bought two number 9s and both crack after cleaning. Ouch. My condolences, Dean Reedy. Butterfingers. Yeah. Nobody better lay a finger on my butterfinger. Okay, but yeah, don't worry. I am going to wash my hands in just a second. However, I think we're at just about the right point, and we can leave that. And what's more, as far as cooties are concerned, I'm about to dump some very hot macaroni on that. So on that butter. So there's no possibility of people being contaminated by whatever is on my fingers. Of course, I did wash my hands before I started tonight anyway, so no problem there. All right. So you do this as quickly as I can. Towel. Holy cow. Yeah, I just cleaned up another number 14th century BSR. Really? Thank goodness. Husband's being fishing buddy said he wants it. Oh, I guess you have got cast ironitis then, Cynthia, in that in that you are acquiring cast iron and may not know what to do with it, which is the situation I've been in for the past several years as well. So I can certainly understand. Okay. Double check the recipe here. All right. This says begin to build your macaroni and cheese. Okay, good. And let me see. After this point is when we do the. Okay, good. All right. Yeah. Not exactly the hard part is done, but probably the most tedious part is done because now we get to add our pasta. There's a reason why I'm using this 7-quart enamel Dutch oven as well, and it's not just because it's a really cool piece of cast iron, but also because when I've made this recipe before, I made this one a few years ago. I made this for Thanksgiving using this amount of macaroni in a BS&R Dutch oven, which is 4.5 quarts in size, and it overflowed. Then another year, I made it in a large 5-quart Dutch oven, and it fit exactly all the way up to the top. So then, after that, I made it last year in this 7-quart Dutch oven, and it worked great. So even though, I do believe the original recipe from Jeff Rogers actually says he uses a 3-quart Dutch oven. I have no idea how he managed to do that because, as I said, this requires at least a 7-quart, as I've found out. Or arguably, if you have a number 9 Dutch oven, that should probably be enough. All right, better than me. Got number 14s, but only need 2. Hoarder, I guess. Okay, let's see. At this point, generate. Okay. If you're using glass, good. Yeah, the oven is preheated to 375 degrees. However, at this point, let's get this again. And it is time to start adding the cheese. So, let's start with, he starts with, okay, Jeff does it the hard way, which is admittedly a good way. He does his by layers, but as you can see, I'm just simply going to be mixing in the cheese as we go. So we're going to start with 1 pound of sharp cheddar. And yeah, this is what I mean. I'm taking a shortcut here because yes, I am actually using the pre-shredded stuff. I did not have time, unfortunately, to shred this cheese myself. Maybe next week, but not tonight, I'm afraid. Nonetheless, I have also done this before. In fact, around April Fool's Day, I believe, of this year, I did a video of doing this exact thing, this exact shortcut for making Jeff Rogers mac and cheese, and it still turned out great. So I don't think anyone is going to complain. And there is, this is not a hot Dutch oven either. So I can actually hold it with my bare hands. So we're starting with 1 pound of cheddar. And try not to get any of it on the floor. How about that? And besides, we're not done yet, so I have a lot more mixing to do. So we have 1 pound of cheddar. Next up, he mentions Monterey Jack. As it turns out, I ended up with 3 jacks. So I wouldn't be doing too badly in a game of cards. Here is Pepper Jack, and here is Colby and Monterey Jack. So we have 3 jacks going into this cheese here. And I'm sure folks could make something nasty, some kind of a nasty joke involving the word jack, but I'm not going to here tonight. Feel free to do so on your own. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So that's 2 pounds of cheese so far. Colby, Monterey, and Pepper Jack. Mixing in with the cheddar. And we're not done yet. Don't ask me how, but we're not done yet. See what I mean? 7-quart Dutch oven. And you can see this thing is... I'm lucky that I'm going to be able to have enough room for all of this mac and cheese, especially with all of this cheese. I mean, we've got 2 pounds of cheese. No, I'm wrong. 2 pounds of macaroni, although it expands in the water, and 3 pounds of cheese. So this is definitely one heavy-duty mac and cheese. All right. Every time I get rid of something, a heap shows up literally at my door. So far, it's been some I don't have and want to keep, so I pass it on. Lodge is selling a Christmas-themed chef skillet at Kohl's right now. I don't need one, yet it's now in my kitchen. Or where have I heard that before? Yes, indeed. Once again, that's why we call it cast ironitis. It's like if you start finding excuses to get more cast iron, I could give this away to friends, then you might have cast ironitis. Okay, then the last pound of cheese is mozzarella. At least I did take the time to find some whole milk mozzarella. I really don't think there's that much of a difference as far as shredded cheese goes. It's between the skim and the whole milk mozzarella, but I did at least go out of my way to try to get the whole stuff. Because, there we go. I heard another joke as well. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's liars. And if there's one type of food I can't stand, it's skim milk, which is water that is lying about being milk. Okay. Somehow have to mix all of this together. The cheese, there is more cheese than macaroni in here. Not that anybody's going to complain about that. But I want to be sure it's evenly spread so that we don't have any clumps. Of course, it's all going to be melting in the oven anyway, so with any luck, that should not be too difficult. However, it does look like by stirring it around, I am managing to not exactly press it down, but get it into a decent shape as well as a decent amount so that it is not reaching up to the top of this Dutch oven. So it's not looking too badly here. Hi. Sadly, my family, when I was young, threw out all cast iron and burnt family pictures. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. There must have been some drama involved, and my condolences for that. I'd put some milk in that. Well, that's going to be coming up in a few minutes for him, Morris. It is not going into the oven just like this, not to worry. Skim milk is okay for cooking with, just not the best. I've had cheese that didn't melt. How do you think, oh, hello, Lando Calrissian. How do you think the large enamel pot compares to your stove? I understand those USA pieces aren't being made anymore. Well, since the stove is huge, I have like a 13-quart stove Dutch oven. In some ways, there are differences. On the other hand, I do feel that this is somewhat thicker than the stove Dutch oven. Both the stove and the Le Creuset are not exactly notorious, but famous for being thin Dutch ovens, despite the fact that they are very high quality enamel. Lodge is a little bit thicker than the stove or Le Creuset. I think I can definitely say that. And yes, it is true that the USA enameled series has been discontinued. After only a little more than a year since it was introduced, Lodge decided to discontinue it, and they cited poor performance, meaning that it didn't sell very well. And thinking it over, I think the reason for that was because Lodge is known mostly for economy costs in cast iron. Lodge, as you know, is very high quality cast iron, yet they sell it at reasonably low prices. Yes, you can get cheaper cast iron that's Asian made, that's true, but Lodge, again, when compared to, pretty much anything else, Butter Pat or, not Butter Pat anymore. Now, Yeti or Smithy or Finex, or which Lodge owns, or Field or the like, Lodge cast iron is considerably less expensive. So I think in that way, it wasn't exactly a mistake, but when they attempted to compete with higher cost cast iron like Le Creuset and offered a Dutch oven at a higher cost, I think people turned their noses up on it for that reason. Oh, I'm very sorry, William, heard about the ads. I'm definitely going to have to check my settings here as soon as this is done. Well, maybe your pot will be collectible now. Well, technically, I suppose it is, although I have no intention of selling either of them. Okay, you had mentioned, meanwhile, milk. And that is the next step coming up here. Let me bring this recipe back up again. Screensaver on my phone. Come on. Okay, we've done repeat one last time. Oh yeah, one last thing that I have to do as well that I should have done before is we also have to mix in some dried basil. Unfortunately, that takes care of that. I've got one container here that's just enough, which means I better mix all of this around as well, because basil can have a pretty strong flavor and scent if you leave it alone. Yeah. All right. Mix this one more time, and then we will get down to the milk. And once we have the milk done, we'll be able to mix it all in, and this will finally go into the oven. And then after that, we can relax and have something of a discussion. Okay. Now, one more time. Milk. And it calls for 3 cups of milk. So, from here, now that we've done that, then, we're not done yet. Then on the top only, sprinkle a light layer of Parmesan cheese, followed by a light layer of Pecorino Romano cheese. Now, with that, where did I put those? Don't tell me I put them in the fridge. They're probably still in the fridge. Yeah, here it is. May not be Pecorino Romano, but it is definitely a combination of Parmesan and Romano. Yeah, we're still kind of saving money here. I admit that. Okay, let's even this out a little bit more. And then we cover this with a layer. It says a light layer. Romano and Parmesan. I didn't realize until recently that Parmesan is actually the more expensive of those two cheeses. While Pecorino Romano can go for high prices, apparently really aged Parmesan can run into the hundreds of dollars if you buy it in the right places. Come on, you know what? Yeah. Hey, is that professional or what? Can you tell that I'm not a professional chef? All right, there we go. That should be plenty. Okay, now finally the milk. Oh, and then finally, not done yet. One other thing, a layer of smoked paprika. And I won't disagree with that either, because I love smoked paprika. At least I was smart enough this time to actually get these ingredients out in advance. That's known as mise en place. Guess what? I've got to rinse off my hands, although I'll be doing this very quickly. And then the milk. I promise. All right. Now, at last, mentions 3 cups of milk, 4 eggs, sea salt, and white sugar. Okay, I even managed to take out the eggs in advance. What a shocker. So, here we come. 4 eggs. 1, 2, plop. 3, and 4. Yeah, I've only learned recently that taking out the eggs in advance actually reduces the possibility of getting shelled in your whatever you're making. I have a cheap Asian-made, no-name enamel Dutch oven. Works fine. I've had it for years, got it as a gift. Haven't had the heart to dish out a large sum for one of the big name brands. Well, I don't blame you, because as you say, if you've gotten all that use out of it, then I'd say you've gotten a good investment for it. My son bought YouTube Premium Family Plan. Nope. So piggybacking off of him, no ads. Oh, I get it. That's with the ads. So in other words, if you actually buy YouTube subscription service, then they will cut out the ads. How clever of them. All right. Now from this, we start whisking the eggs together. And as always, I don't want to spill this all over the place, because when have I ever done that? Yeah, isn't it wonderful doing a live cooking show? I mean, good. What could ever happen, or what could have possibly possessed me to do a live cooking show? Well, I've somehow been managing to do this for almost, or maybe over 5 years, so something seems to be going right. Nonetheless, to this we do 3 teaspoons of sea salt. I don't have sea salt, but I do have kosher salt. And 3 teaspoons white sugar, which that I do have. All right, now we blend it. How much of this you will need to make depends on how large a dish you're using. At this point, we slowly pour the milk and egg mixture into the macaroni. And this is the part where a few minutes ago you said it needs some milk. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing here. Has anyone ordered the new Lodge personalized pans where they put your name on the bottom? They keep emailing me. Yeah, Lodge has introduced a new service now of actually producing your own customized design cast iron skillets. However, the designs are very, very limited in that you don't have an unlimited choice in what kind of design you want to put on the pan. I mean, folks may know that I have been lucky enough to own a special cast iron pan with the image of J.R. Bob Dobbs, the pipe smoking messiah, on the bottom. Yes, indeed. And the story I tell is that it was the result of a freak meteor accident. However, regardless, you could not have that kind of a cast iron pan made from Lodge cast iron. Regrettably, they have currently they have a selection of 4 templates that you can use, and they'll probably increase that in the future as well. But things like what you might see, for instance, on plaques and trophies and the like, things like a tree and a sign and other kind of designs like that. So yes, you can of course put your own text on those kind of designs, and they're selling, and the service that you get from Lodge means that they're charging about $100 or so for a number 8 size cast iron skillet, which frankly is about the cost of what you would get on Etsy for a premium designer cast iron skillet of your own design. So you can decide what you want there. Nonetheless, I'm hoping Lodge does some good business with it. I am not dissing Lodge for saying that, because, well, they're a good company and they certainly deserve the business. And I hope it makes them a lot of money, because if it does, then they'll expand it and give us more choices. All right. Experimenting this weekend, Ricky, with the lamb cake. Billy then pumped me up with the little engine that could. Oh, yeah, I've got to make another attempt at that lamb cake. In fact, maybe I'll do that for Thanksgiving next week, because, my first attempt at using that Griswold lamb mold, as you know, last week stuck badly, and I intend to make another shot at it. I'm not just going to throw it aside and give up. Okay. I do believe our milk is finally mixed in with the eggs and salt and sugar. There's always a little bit of residue, but that can't be helped. So, now that we've done that, we're finally going to be ready to put this into the oven. Let's get the phone out of the way, just in case of an accident. I better be careful about this microphone, too, for that matter. We pour this... I should probably put this down close so that it doesn't splash. 3 cups of milk going in. And voila. Now it will sink in and be absorbed. And that means it is now time finally to cover this. Let me double check the recipe. Yeah, everything says yeah. Cover it with a lid and foil and put in the oven for 30 minutes, at which point then we will uncover it. So that means we get to go back to the oven one more time. And in we go. A 1. Ugh, holy cow. A 2. Oh, crap. Ugh. A 3. All right. And we set the timer for 30 minutes. I found someone with a bigger collection. There are bigger collections than mine, do it, E-Man, believe it or not. 1 second. I'm setting 8, 9, 30. Here we go. Is it on? Yes, it's on. Okay, our kitchen timer is ready. Phew. And that, oh crap. what did I do? I have an extra stick of butter here. I didn't put enough butter in. Okay. Looks like I'm gonna have to fudge it. Ugh. Let's get this out, and I don't want to burn myself. I goofed. It says 1.5 sticks of butter. I did not put enough butter in. So I goofed. This is what happens when I concentrate on doing this this live, because it means that I mess up, I miss crucial steps like this. Oh well, it should all work out because the butter will melt and sink into our mixture of mac and cheese. So start. Oh, and besides, this butter is already softened, so that shouldn't be a problem. That's a relief. And one more. All right. 1, 2. Come on. 3, 4. What did they say on Project Runway? Make it work, people. 5, 6, and 7. There we go. This certainly was not in the recipe, but hey, what can you say? I mean, yeah, I know. This is what you folks like to call chaos whenever something like this happens on my channel. And it always seems to happen every week, doesn't it? Okay, well, take 2. One more time. Oh man, this thing is hot. And you know, these let me say something. Okay. You saw those metal, those metal pieces that they've fastened to the handles of those Dutch ovens, that got warm really fast. I could feel it as I was taking it out of the oven, and it had only been in there for about a minute or so. It didn't burn me. It wasn't hot enough to burn me, but it definitely absorbed some heat. So that was interesting. At last. Okay. Thank you for all of your patience, folks. All right. What do we have here now? Okay, let's see if we haven't missed anything. Yeah, Dean Reedy, mac and cheese. Yes, exactly. It isn't chaos until the chaos detector goes off. The chaos detector, fortunately, is not going to go off tonight. Not unless I leave this in the oven for like about 5 hours and it burns and starts to smoke. And with any luck, that's not going to happen. Of course, on my channel, who knows? Okay. Oh, yeah. Bamboo cutting board. Yes, actually, this was something of a birthday present, so it's actually brand new. You know how I mentioned last week that I was dumb enough to actually warp my other cutting board, the big inch-thick booze board, or it might have been an 1.5 inches or so, regrettably. Yeah, I felt kind of bad about that. And yet, however, when I showed it to my girlfriend, she said, give it to me. So I gave it to her. And that meant I had to acquire a new cutting board. So I took some advice from the internet. Brian Lagerstrom, I mean, maybe if you followed his channel, every so often he's done a video where he talks about essential kitchen cooking items or kitchen tools to really boost up your cooking level, to level up your cooking. One of the things he suggested was a big honking cutting board so that you have a lot of room to be able to do the chopping that you need, as opposed to a tiny little cutting board where you're always trying to cut things and things just keep falling off and the like. So yeah, having a lot of room, as he points out, should make it a lot easier to do cutting here. So this, for the record, is not exactly a world famous brand. Kitcoin, whatever that is. But on the other hand, on Amazon, this cost a total of $40. So as far as a birthday present goes, I don't think that was too bad. Especially since, as you know, cutting boards can run very, very expensive. And this is an inch-thick bamboo cutting board. With any luck, I should at least get a few years of use out of it. At least that's my hope. They only downgrade if a large cutting board is fitting in this. Oh, the only downgrade if a large cutting board. Oh, downgrade. You mean downside. I'm sorry. Is fitting it in the sink for washing. Well, there is that. I mean, yeah, that is something I'm definitely going to have to get used to as well. But I will do my best. Jonathan Mosley, trying to decide between that USA enamel Dutch oven or a stove. I think I prefer a black enamel interior, waiting for a big sale. You might be right in the long run. That is one of the things I really do enjoy. Let me do a sponge here because this is egg residue. That is one of the things I do enjoy about my stove Dutch oven. The fact that it has the black enamel on the interior. Not only because it looks like bare cast iron, even though it's definitely enameled, but as well, it's a lot more difficult to stain. I'm also getting a paper towel here. I mean, that's the thing. As anybody who uses an enameled Dutch oven knows, one of the things that really drives you up the wall is when the inside of your pot starts to stain. I've been doing my best so that doesn't happen with this USA enamel, but I realize sooner or later it's going to happen. One thing that would be worse than staining, of course, would actually be cracking the enamel or chipping it, and hopefully that will not happen. However, yes, staining in an enamel Dutch oven is something that really annoys a lot of people, and for that reason, I might even say that stove might indeed have something of an advantage in that area. Not to mention that, well, granted, Lodge still has its world-class customer service and as well as a money-back guarantee or a lifetime guarantee, I should say. Okay, do you have to oil bamboo? My understanding is yes. So that means eventually, probably within a week or so, I'm going to give this a good oiling. Maybe I might even do it now, just to have something to do here. Although, I was suggesting he forgot to turn the oven on. Actually, no, I didn't. Not this time. I didn't. I did in fact preheat the oven to 375. So it is in the oven right now. The oven timer is on. And yes, exactly. I did preheat William Hurt. And currently the oven timer says 22 minutes to go. So yes, I've done that before, but not this time. Maybe next time. Who knows? Okay, what was I just saying? What temperature is the oven? The oven is at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is that's a decent temperature. The recipe says that if you use a glass baking dish or Dutch oven to do it, then you would have to heat it up to 400 because apparently glass conducts heat worse than enameled cast iron. Okay, although I had mentioned as well, I would run. Do you have to oil bamboo? Well, actually, how about this? Like I said, let's do it. Why not? And that all I have to do is get out my mineral oil. There it is, which I purchased in the laxative section at, I think it was Target or something. It is, of course, food-grade mineral oil, at which point then all we have to do is give it a nice and very thin coat. We do not have to soak this. So, since this is a big board, that's probably enough. Back here, let me see if I can get you in closer here. Just a tiny little dab of mineral oil. How did I do this? Put this to one side. And away we go. Arguably, I could use a cloth, but there's actually apparently nothing really wrong with using your hands to grease your cutting board. In fact, I think I might actually need to use more. Because this is a larger cutting board, it looks like the oil is not spreading all the way to the other side. So let's put a dab or so over on this side. And keep going. Oh, that's much better. Now I want to be sure it's not too thick. There we go. Right now it actually feels like it's a little too thick, so I'm going to actually have to wipe it off, which I will do. However, one thing I have to do is get it in the grooves. Get into the groove. Boy, you've got to prove. Yeah, this is definitely feels too thick up here on this end. So let's get a paper towel and wipe it off. Other side. And of course, since I have oil on my hands, I'm going to have to wipe or wash off my hands yet again. But I don't think we're doing too badly. So yes, thank you for giving me the incentive to give my board its first oiling. Here's hoping, as I said, that I can get at least a few years worth of use out of this. Again, trying to put some emphasis on the grooves here. Okay, I think. Okay, just the cast iron. Okay, good thing that board is sanded good. You'd hate to get a sliver. There is that, yes. And I think that's when you know your board, it needs to be sanded down or otherwise maintenance. I mean, if you chopped it to the point where you start getting splinters, then you know you've got to do some maintenance. You know, safety first. Do not ignore wiping down the bottom after the show. There, I will not ignore that. I will say I went to the dollar store and got one of those little mats. You know, those things that helps really to hold this down. And even though that's just a small little mat, that's enough so that this thing is nice and sturdy. And so when I use it, there will not be a risk of just that, of the board moving around. Okay, oiling up the wood. All right. Never ignore wiping the bottom. Where is poor Fuzzy? The oil made the board look very nice. Yes, it did. I'll have to say that too. So thank you very much for your advice on that. Definitely gonna have to. I mean, one of the reasons why I ended up warping my other board was I didn't oil it enough, because it managed to absorb liquid that way. Okay, boy, we're at 9 o'clock here already, and we still haven't even gotten to what I had mentioned, namely Thanksgiving dishes, but that's all right. The important thing is the conversation here. I have to be sure this is dry enough as well that this doesn't mess up this mouse here. I also want to be sure I haven't missed any of your comments. I keep a plastic cutting board under my booze to raise it a bit, which keeps moisture and liquid from collecting underneath, as that is what causes warping. Yeah, well, maybe I might find a way perhaps to put something under the corners here of this. Although they would have to, again, be sure that the board doesn't move around. That actually doesn't sound like a bad idea either. I probably wish I'd thought of that, or I'd heard this advice like several years ago. Okay, but oh yeah, but he'll see the big board. Yes, I know exactly where that came from. Yeah, Mr. President, you're not going to allow that commie punk to vomit all over us here in the war room. Gentlemen, you can't come in here. No, you can't fight in here. This is the war room. Question for anybody that knows. Jotol 17L product of Norway on the bottom. My cutest piece, I got seasoning. Cute little Dutch oven. Really? Well, the only thing I know about Jotol, first of all, the J is usually silent, is that they manufacture stoves. You know, much like here in the USA, they actually manufacture stoves and other things, as well as those cast iron pieces. In the city where I used to live, Worcester, Massachusetts, there was actually an outlet for Jotol, and I never did have a chance to go in and look around and see what they were selling. The only thing I know that they were selling was stoves, but I'm not sure if they sold any other kind of equipment. The best I could say is look it up, because as far as I know, they are still in business. I hope that helps. Oh no, I did wipe down the board. I mean, I did wash the board with a sponge first before before oiling it. All right. Going on here. The no-slip corner props sounds like a good idea. Oh, yeah, I think I know what you mean. And I'm pretty sure I could get those. I can always look on Amazon, or maybe even on Home Depot. That doesn't sound like a bad plan at all. Okay, well, that's yet another thing to keep in mind, I suppose. You notice how there's always something else you have to get. I gotta get this. I gotta get that. And it's not just the cast iron either. I change out my cutting boards to allow bacteria to expire. All right, the no-slip corner props. Okay. What do you think my 1920s Wagner is worth? Okay, well, Doherty, man, yes, thank you very much for bringing the subject back to cast iron. I mean, it's just because, I encourage the conversation here. 1920s Wagner. A Wagner what? Is it a Wagner skillet? Is it a Wagner Dutch oven? Wagner pans, there's something about Wagner. I mean, Wagner is always mentioned right next to Griswold as the most valuable cast iron that they want to sell at antique malls. When you go to any antique malls, if you don't see Griswold, you will see Wagner. And Wagner does actually have nice quality cast iron, in that they do indeed have very well polished surfaces. The thing about Wagner is it seems to be so common, in that it's very, very easy to find Wagner, even in the vintage hunt. I mean, heck, when I cleaned out the lye tank last week, I pulled out a Wagner number 8 as well. So at an antique mall, I would expect a 1920s typical Wagner skillet, if you're talking like a number 8 skillet. I would expect it to sell anywhere from 30 to have a price tag, not necessarily to sell, a price tag of anywhere from $30 to $50. Would I pay $30 to $50 for a Wagner number 8 cast iron skillet? I would not. Partly because, of course, my collection is, I don't need any more cast iron, but also because, just as I said, it's so commonplace. You would likely be able to find a Wagner somewhere else at a better price. Cynthia Wesley, it's Norway cast iron I've never seen before. It's a 12. Oh, that tells us something. You've got a number 12. Okay. Well, that definitely ups the ante. Number 12 Wagner is definitely much, much more uncommon or even rare. So That pretty much cancels out a lot of what I said about Wagner being everyday cast iron. A number 12 Wagner is definitely much more valuable and rare, and so I could easily see that at an antique mall, at least in the $100 price range. Could you sell it at that price? It's possible that you might. I might advise going onto the Facebook cast iron groups, such as Patriot Cast Iron, for example. They would have they sell cast iron there all the time at decent prices, and they might be able to give you a better judgment as to how much you might be able to get for that. Lando Calrissian, have you ever had issues with seasoning adhering to smooth Wagner stylized logo pans? This has been my experience, and it hasn't been the case with Lodge or BSR for me. Issues with seasoning adhering. Do you mean too much seasoning getting stuck on, or do you mean it not seasoning? I can't say especially with Wagner. If anything, it seems to have the problem of being when you find a Wagner skillet, just like any skillet, that might have fire damage or may have been damaged or warped in some manner, and that does tend to make it much more difficult to season, and the seasoning might not even adhere. So, it just based on my experience, for whatever it's worth, well, I should say this: I did not have any difficulty really seasoning that Wagner number 8. Let me go and get it. I mean, might as well, instead of just talking about it. Right over here. Yeah. Here we are. I just pulled this one out of the lye tank last week and seasoned it. And it looks like in whole, the seasoning seems to have taken nicely. There do seem to be a couple of spots on here. On the other hand, I hope it's not just residue from it resting on the table or something. On the other hand, the inside seasoned okay, yet there seems to be a spot right in the center where the seasoning looks a little, I don't know, like maybe the seasoning went on too thick, perhaps, even though I did my best to wipe it. But this is, in fact, a typical Wagner ware number 8 with smooth bottom. That means this is anywhere from the 1930s to the 1950s. This is what I meant by an everyday Wagner skillet. But I really can't say I had any real difficulty seasoning this, for whatever that's worth. Okay, I was just handed down my grandmother's Griswold number 8. Erie, Pennsylvania 704A. Wow. Now, that's actually interesting, Casey. The thing with Griswold is, depending on the logo, that really helps to be able to date it. I mean, if it has the Griswold cross, and if it is what they call the slant logo Griswold, that's the oldest of the Griswold cross ones, and generally considered to be the most valuable. The Griswold cross was in its earliest days. We're talking like 1905 or so to maybe 1915 to 1920 or so. Then it switched to the large block logo, the LBL, which generally dates from the 1920s through the 1930s. And then finally the small logo Griswold, which was the 1940s to 1950s. So if that helps to identify the age of your skillet, at least I hope that might help anyway. Cross with bold letter double circle. That sounds like you might have the LBL, the large block logo, which again could be estimated from the 1920s to the 1930s. So I can only hope that helps. There are actually Griswold experts, because Griswold is so valuable and so prized by collectors and antique vendors, that there are people who really have an incredible knowledge of Griswold cast iron, much more than I do, quite frankly. Yeah. Number 5, Wagner, fancy writing. When you're saying fancy, when you're saying fancy writing, are you referring to this logo, for instance, which was actually fairly common? The thin style font of this Wagner skillet was all the way from when they started this in maybe the 1910s or so, or 1920s, going all the way to the 1950s, maybe even 1960s or so. Then they changed their design of their pans slightly, and they produced the Wagner logo with a somewhat thicker style font, and produced it in that manner from the 60s through the 70s and arguably the 1980s. But I do hope that helps. And by the way, we have 5 minutes left before the first half of our mac and cheese is done. The mac and cheese is not going to be finished in time for this live, unfortunately. So I'm going to have a reveal when it's done. But in 5 minutes, 4 minutes now, we will take the lid off so that we can actually brown it. And then it will be in for another 30 minutes. The outer heat ring is a French kiss. Is French kiss on my Wagners. Oh, I know what you're referring to. You're referring to instead of the smooth bottom here, you're referring to the heat ring on the edge of the older Wagner skillets, which does mean that it's an older Wagner, likely 1910s or so up to the 1920s or maybe even 1930s. But yeah, the heat ring would make that an older Wagner, older than what this one has. And if you're not sure what a heat ring is, that is where instead of having this smooth curved edge here, it actually has an edge, more of a corner, going all around the outside of the skillet, and that is the heat ring. Do you have any slant logo Griswolds? I do. I have one. I have a number 3 Griswold slant logo. If you like, give me a second, and I will go and get that. I'll be as quick as I can. It should be right here. There it is. All right. Here is a slant logo number 3, which, as I said, is the oldest of the 3 styles of the Griswold cross. Although there are other variations as well, like you see how this Erie has quotes and it is straight across, whereas newer versions of the Griswold cross actually had the Erie and Erie PA USA more curved, or going more in a certain in a curved design around the bottom. So this straight one would mean technically that this is an older model. So I would say this could very well be within the 1910s or the 1910s. I would think maybe at the very least. But as I said, this is the slant logo, and if your Griswold does not look like this, then it's probably the large block logo. Griswold God must have been through my little town. They are showing up. Well, that sounds interesting. Heat ring cookware was made for wood coal stoves. And I noticed as well that Griswold, even though this is so old, it does have a smooth bottom rather than an actual protracted heat ring. Oh, I just heard a beep. We're at the 1 minute mark here before I have to take the cover off of that. Wood coal stoves, yes. All right, let's switch back over to the oven one more time. And actually, I better make room for this so that this is got a hot lid. Okay. All right. According to the recipe here, let me bring that recipe back up. In fact, okay. After 30 minutes, remove the lid or foil and cook an additional 30 minutes. Keep an eye on it for the last 10 minutes so that you don't scorch the top. The top should just be lightly brown. If the top begins to get too brown, put the lid back on or tent the dish with foil. It does need the full hour in the oven. Okay. So, first step is done. Oh, be quiet. First step is done. Now, carefully. In fact, shit, always something, isn't it? I think I'm gonna have to use two hands here. Where did the other glove go? Ugh. Oh, there it is. That's right. Take this lid off. Put this back. Oh, that butter is still there, for whatever that's worth. Let's see what happens now uncovered. And let's put this over here. Careful. There. All right. Now we set the timer for another 30 minutes. And we're on. And back to business. Okay, instead of looking at my distended stomach, I get to see my ugly mug again. Anyway, still time to make cornbread. Actually, I can't because the oven is being used. The oven is at 375. I would have to heat the oven up to at least 400 or 425 for cornbread. So unfortunately, there may be time, but I don't have the capability to do so, I'm sorry to say. Who's going to eat all that? Well, yeah, I've already got a volunteer for starters. That was the story I said at the very beginning of this live video. I was originally going to cook 1 pound of mac and cheese, which would still be more than enough for my current house guests and myself. But my girlfriend demanded that I make some for her. So you can't say no to that. So that means now I've got 2 pounds of mac and cheese there in the oven. 2 pounds of macaroni, 3 pounds of cheese, 3.5 pounds of cheese. So, oh yeah. Well, fortunately, she's got a big family, which means that when I take all the rest of that mac and cheese to her tomorrow, it's going to disappear very quickly. So fortunately, for once, that's not something I need to worry about. Not this time anyway. All right. My Wagner with the seasoning issue is the exact same one, excuse me, that you just showed. Do you think mine may be fire damaged? I make cornbread and there is always black on the bottom of the food. I'm thinking you might be right. It's rare that I find a Wagner that is not a spinner. Like, for instance, even this one, even though this is not much of a spinner, it's still a little bit of a spinner, but not much. If your Wagner is a much more serious spinner than this and more seriously warped, then that would also be a suggestion that yours might be fire damaged. So there is indeed that possibility. Hello, Queen Usagi. Found you some months ago when I was looking for a cast iron cornbread video. Oh, well, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for kind words there. I'm glad. I remember that video. How to use a cast iron cornbread pan. Boy, it's been a few years, hasn't it? But yeah, that is still my go-to method for making cornbread, for the record. You preheat the pan, add the oil, heat the oil for a little bit, mix the oil into the batter, and then the batter goes into the pan. And as you can see, it works just about every time. Does it have the warpage or any redness in the iron? Yes, as William Hurt asks. That's the other telltale sign of serious fire damage on a pan. It has a reddish color to it, and you simply cannot get rid of the red color because that is, in fact, fire damage, and it is permanent. Wagner had spinners right out of the factory. Yes, exactly. May I ask, Lando, what do you season with? Yeah, in my case, I use just Crisco. But yes, I mean, anybody else who wants to say what they use to season their cast iron, please feel free. Doherty Man. I got a Crofton enameled broiler for $2.50. $2.50? Holy cow. I know it's a cheap brand, but for $2.50, it's good. I would not pass it up either if I had a use for it. I'm not disagreeing with that. Use it as much as you can. So yes, definitely go ahead and do so. All right. Something about oh, that was the cornbread. Well, thank you again. All right. I never noticed any discoloration upon taking it out of the lye tank. I use Crisco 475 for 1 hour. Well, that's one other possibility. When I season mine with Crisco, I take it up to 400, not 475. Maybe 475 might actually be too hot, and that might actually be burning the Crisco right off. That's one possibility. The damage is when the carbon is burnt out of the cast iron. Oh, fire damage is when the carbon is burnt out of the cast iron. Might I suggest you do that? I mean, you probably don't even have to strip the current pan. Just put another layer of Crisco on it, thin, of course, wipe it off after that, and just bring it up to 400 degrees instead of 475. You might have better luck that way. I bring mine up slowly to 400 degrees and leave it in the oven for 2 hours. And in fact, now that I think of it, I do believe tomorrow I'm probably going to be seasoning some cast iron as well. So the disadvantage of that is it means it's going to produce some smoke here in the house. On the other hand, my understanding is my house guests are going to be out running errands anyway, heading up to where they need to go and the like.
Hinterlands.
Okay, yeah, hinterlands. That's one way to put it. Because among other things, I will take the time and clean up that cast iron pan of yours, and I do have a couple of others I can always reseason. So, I mean, if you're going to take the time to season cast iron in the oven and make smoke and other things, you should do more than one pan at a time if you have them. Because, I mean, if you're going to do it, then, get as much use out of it as you can for whatever that's worth. And holy cow, are we really at 9:25 p.m. already? Could be. I've never had any other pans with this issue with my current seasoning method. Okay, well, if your seasoning method works, maybe it might be that pan, but, well, that would be my suggestion. Try 400. I seasoned this one at 400. I've seasoned pretty much all of my pans at 400, and in general I think I get good results from it. So I'm late, folks. Hello, Ronald Coward. Hello, cast iron peeps or perps. You might be right either way. Soon as I get large, I just go ahead and strip. Horrible seasoning. Fired. Okay. All right. I use avocado oil. Well, the short answer is whatever works, though my understanding is avocado oil is a high smoke point oil, and for that you do have to use a high temperature, like 450 or more. Has anyone else here seasoned on a charcoal grill? I personally have not. I do understand there are others who have. I mean, hey, if you can bring it up to the right temperature, then it should certainly work. I've been using the same lye bath for over a year now. Yes, that's another question I got recently about whether or not the lye tank needs to be replaced after a year or so. Yeah, mine is going on at least a couple of years old now already. My best advice would be if you feel that the bottom of the lye tank is starting to get really, really full of gunk, then you should probably clean it out. Maybe you might even want to reserve the same lye, perhaps, and use it. But yeah, at that point, it's probably time to clean it out. Okay, I had before, William, that iron turned out to be pretty and black. Okay. Okay, I've been using the same lye bath. Okay. Boy, I have to say again, I had wanted this to be a conversation about Thanksgiving side dishes, and that barely came up, other than the mac and cheese. However, the important thing is that we have a good conversation. I mean, as I said, this time has flown by, and I can't believe we're already at just about 9:30 already. Lando Killers, I found Crisco and vegetable oils produce a more long-lasting seasoning than the fancy oils, that produce a shiny finish. Grapeseed and flax has always failed me, in fact. Yeah, I did my piece about flaxseed oil a few years ago, and I should probably say something new about that as well, namely that there's a reason why some cast iron users call it flakeseed oil. And so, yeah, I mean, if there's any oil that I think we do not recommend using for seasoning your cast iron, it's flaxseed. It's also expensive. I mean, why use that expensive flaxseed oil that you can't use for anything else when you could use something else like Crisco or vegetable oil or your avocado oil, which you can use in cooking too? You know, get more use out of it. So why not? Especially these days as well, we certainly do need to save money and get as much use out of our stuff as we can, can't we? Oh, okay. Caressing Crisco is is the original seasoning. Well, yes. I mean, well, the original seasoning, my understanding, was things like animal fat, you know, lard and tallow and the like. But eventually, then came along vegetable oil, and that has since been a popular seasoning as well. But I've had a lot of luck with Crisco. Okay, see, I find how everyone has different methods. There is no right answer. That is true. The thing is like if you ask 10 different people how to season their cast iron, you'll get 12 answers. And probably 11 of those answers will be correct. This may be science, but it's not rocket science and it's not mathematics, although math can be involved with it. Meaning that it's not like there is one right answer and no other answer is right. There are many right answers in regards to cast iron maintenance and cast iron cooking and even cast iron collecting. And because there are many different answers, that's why so many people argue over cast iron collecting. But nonetheless, I hear beeswax helps a lot. Yes, I was using beeswax myself until I ran out, and that's one of those things I need to replenish. So yes, it's not rocket science it's rocket science if it's a rocket stove. Yeah, touche, panic. All right. Nonetheless, though, as I said, you know, it is about time to get on. But hold on. People tend to be allergic to peanut and other meat fats, so I tend to steer clear of the boutique seasonings. Well, there is that. Although here's one thing though about seasoning cast iron. Regardless of what oil you're using, whether it's peanut oil or lard, olive oil is a low smoke point. I would not recommend that. Or Crisco or the like. In general, I mean, what you're doing is you're making a simple chemical reaction. You're burning it. You're converting it to a layer of carbon on the surface of your pan. So that is going to pretty much negate any allergies that you might have. Meaning that if you season your pans with peanut oil, for instance, people who have peanut allergies should still have nothing to worry about, because on the pan you don't have peanut oil residue. You have carbon. It has been carbonized and transformed into carbon. The thing, of course, about lard is that you know, people with aversions to pork, I mean, that's not really a natural allergy. That's more of a cultural thing. So in that case, if you do have people who are averse to pork, then I would probably not recommend using lard to season your cast iron. But that is an exception, because that, as I said, is culture or religion or whatever you call it. It's not science, which is what all the other things are. I feel like I could take bare iron and just cook with it, and it would season itself over time. You could actually. I mean, how do you think they started with cast iron originally? And it would season. That would actually be an interesting experiment. Well, you would have some advantages and some disadvantages. I mean, the reason why they have seasoning is, well, number one, to actually protect your cast iron against rust, as well as number two, to get that nonstick coating. So you would get some sticking at least at first, but the sticking wouldn't last long. So, I mean, if you want to do that experiment, I would definitely say give it a try. Now that the lid is off, I'm definitely smelling that mac and cheese. And especially since I ended up putting a lot of butter on the top, so that's definitely contributing to the aroma too. Okay, I had a friend with a physical pork allergy. It's rare, but it's a real thing. Well, I don't doubt that. I mean, there are allergies to just about everything. My ex-wife, who I don't talk about much because I don't like dissing people when they're not here, but she did say she claimed that she had a fatal allergy to what was that kind of oh god, sesame, that's it. She claimed she had a fatal allergy to sesame. But of course, we could never prove that because obviously we were not going to ask her to try sesame, like sesame seeds or anything like that. I mean, I do keep sesame oil now, of course, for my Chinese style stir fries, and yeah, it really adds flavor. But I'll never know whether or not it was a genuine allergy. But yes, there can be allergies to just about anything. All right, a vegetarian, and it would be disrespectful for someone to trick him into using bacon fat. Well, yeah, that again, like I said, those are not based on science; they are based on culture or preference or folklore or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not going to get into an argument at this point right now, especially since I'm trying to end this. I'm not getting into an argument right now over religion and averse to pork for religious reasons or averse to pork because of vegetarian reasons or anything like that. Basically, if you have family and friends and you do want to respect them, at least in some part, I mean, after all, they are your friends. So that for that reason, I don't cook with pork because I have family and friends who choose not to eat pork. And that's probably all I really need to say on that particular subject. I found the non-stick thing, while partially true, is a bit of a myth. The mostly heat control and fat, and I can slide eggs on stainless steel. Yes, there's a good point for you. Stainless steel. I mean, after all, you can season stainless steel, but you don't have to. So there you go. And yeah, Corey Clark, good night, everybody. Yes, that's true. Okay, as I did say, we are getting past 9:30 again. I mean, this has happened quite a few times where the conversation just keeps on going, and that's a good thing. Yes, because we're here to have fun. Like I said, I had wanted to talk about Thanksgiving dishes, and all we talked about was mac and cheese. Then we talked about cast iron. But hey, what's wrong with that? After all, we're having a lot of fun. I certainly had a lot of fun here with this conversation. And I can only hope the folks did as well. We have about 38 people now, even after an hour and a half, so I don't think we're doing too badly. But if I can't eat my pork, then they got to go. Well, that's a subject for another time, Cynthia. 24-hour stream. Oh, good grief. Maybe someday, maybe the day when I make my spiral potatoes. Okay. But as I said, we do have to call it a night, largely because this is Wednesday night, remember. A lot of us have work tomorrow, and again, it's still a week yet before Thanksgiving, so we do actually have to get on and have to get going. And anyway, so far, there's only 13 minutes to go before that mac and cheese comes out of the oven, but I don't think I'm going to go that long. Like I said, I'm going to do a short video of the reveal of the mac and cheese, so don't worry. You will be able to see it. Might as well keep going until it's time to take the mac and cheese out. Okay. How is there only 24 thumbs up? Well, thank you. Okay. Let us peek at the mac. All right. I think I'll do that much anyway. I mean, it's not like a cake. It's not like it's going to fall. Let's let's go down to the oven here. And let's look down and let's take a peek at the mac and cheese. See how it looks now. This is looking pretty good. All of that butter on top, though. I think I'm going to do some. Let me say that again. I think that's looking pretty good here. Yeah, I mean, I remember I've got a stand mic. Although I do see that butter is still pooling on top. So I think I'm going to do something about that and get a skewer. Oh, here's a good excuse. I found these really nice looking skewers at the flea market a few months ago. So any excuse to use them would be nice. This one says Istanbul on it. Okay, let's bring this out once again. Don't want to burn myself. I mean, you saw I've already burned myself within the last week. Let's poke this around a little bit. Try to get this to sink more into the mac and cheese. Hopefully that'll help. All right, now back in. Okay, so far so good. Tasted. No, I can't do that, Rocket Caver. Not until it's done. Okay, and also it's very hot too. The thumbs up on my machine is never accurate, way off. But yeah, all right. Time to pull out the oven. Yeah, time to pull iron out of the oven. And thank you and for the evening. Well, thank you, and a good night to Cynthia Wesley. Okay, like it or not, I think I'm going to call this a night. And then I'll do a short video, I promise, of revealing the mac and cheese, which is in 10 minutes. So, but thank you to everybody, though, really, for sticking around and for prolonging the conversation. Because, you know, as I said, we've got Thanksgiving coming up. We've got a lot of preparations to do. Things are busy. And so the next week is going to be fun. And yeah, this year as well, for political reasons, which I'm not going to get into, it's going to be especially fun for a lot of people. And to that, I can only say good luck to everybody, and I hope everything turns out well. And please be sure to help each other, especially this year. Really, reach out a helping hand to your family and friends, and do what you can so that we can be sure as many people as possible have a happy Thanksgiving. And having said that, I think I'd like to say, a good night to everybody who's been kind enough to show up here. Lando Calrissian and Doherty Man, Rocket Caver and 4M Morris family, William Hurt and Fatty Meats and Glenn Kay and 4M Morris family, I said that one, and Kevin Brown and Panic Bedlam and RT Scotts and everybody else who has been kind enough to show up here. Thank you very much for taking the time to spend here this evening, because we are going to do all of this next week as well, the night before Thanksgiving. You know, I was planning next week to do my Thanksgiving pies during the live, only it turns out that another person in my family is going to be preparing the pies for for Thanksgiving. So I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to have to do next week. I could make another mac and cheese. Or, well, if that's repeating, I'm sure I could think of something else. Green bean casserole, perhaps? Okay, but nonetheless, we'll see what happens, and that'll be in another week. But right now, happy Thanksgiving, everyone, as Corey Clark says, and thank you very much for your time. And so I'll end this, as always, though, with my favorite quote from 2001: A Space Odyssey. See you next Wednesday.